at that emotion.
Around the outside. It's time to bring the action.
Welcome to SuperMotocross Insider. I am Jason Weigandt. He is Jason Thomas. We're going to break down the opener for the Pro Motocross Championship in 2023 and the ongoing SuperMotocross World Championship. For the first time, we're going to have combined points to look at on this show. Supercross points and the first round of motocross together. But look, we cannot go any further into the show and not talk about the obvious topic. Jett Lawrence, in what's his first full-time, points-paying 450 race, not only wins, but he was dominant. Second moto was close, but the qualifying, the first moto, as hyped as this guy is, I think it exceeded the hype, JT.
And it really started in the morning. You know, I was fortunate enough to be standing there when he came off the racetrack and he heard over the house announcing what his lap time was, because remember, his mechanic doesn't know yet. No one knows. So he's kind of wondering, he's thinking it's a good lap. I'm sure you can kind of tell that as a rider, but to be 2.5 seconds faster than Chase Sexton or anyone else on the racetrack for that matter, probably had to feel good and instill a little bit more confidence than he already had. He follows that up. He gets the whole shot in the first moto. And to be honest, he made it look way too easy. I would gauge his effort level the second half of the moto at about 70%. I don't know that I've ever seen, well, since the days of Ricky Carmichael anyway, someone ride that smoothly and easily in the second half of the moto and still be able to maintain or pull a lead when he needed to. So a little bit of a scary sign in Moto 1. Now, thankfully in Moto 2, Chase Sexton brought the fight. I think it was one of Jett's biggest tests to date, but he passed. Right? He did the same thing. He executed the same plan that he had in the 250 class when someone was having a good day. And at the end, he would do just enough to win. And that's something we've seen him do time and time again, is he doesn't have to win by 30 seconds. If that's there, great. But if it's not, he's fine to win by a couple of seconds and manage the pressure behind him, which is so rare at his age. And he's been doing it for a couple of years now. So I don't expect that to change.
Yeah, and a similar story in the 250 class where his brother Hunter wins. So now we have the first time ever, by the way, that brothers have won both classes on the same day in AMA Pro Motocross. There were so many 250 riders who were fast, as we expected, but it's also a scary thought for the competition, because what I think Hunter's greatest asset is he's such a well-rounded, consistent package now, and that was the key. A lot of guys went fast. He was the most consistent. He wins the overall. And oh, by the way, we find out after the race, he hurt his ribs on Monday, couldn't ride all week. That makes it even more impressive.
Yeah, he had a great day. You know, the first moto, suffered through a bad start, worked his way to the front, overcoming adversity as we know he can do. And then the second race was much the same we saw in his 250 East run in Monster Energy Supercross. And he made it look eerily similar to what Jett Lawrence does. And if that's what he's going to bring all summer long, these guys are in for a lot of trouble, because I don't know that there are more than a couple of guys that can match pace. We saw RJ Hampshire in the first moto, looks like he's up to the task. But if they're going to let Hunter get out front and set his own pace and not have a challenge, it's going to be a very long summer for everyone else not named Hunter Lawrence.
Yeah, they're going to have to figure out the consistency side, because there's no doubt he's got that dialed in. We'll have plenty more analysis coming from our opener at Fox Raceway, but we actually get a rare opportunity to look much bigger, but also much more deeply into this sport and how the industry works. Big thanks to KTM for giving us time with their boss here in North America, the CEO. Let's get to our big interview. Okay, welcome to our big interview. And this one's big literally, because we're in the $53 million campus that is the Pure Mobility Group, or as we know it, the KTM Group here in North America, joined by the CEO, John Hinz. Of course, KTM Group, from our perspective, includes Husqvarna and Gas, a lot of bicycle and street bike brands as well. Yes. When we see this building, and we've covered it before, I think everyone thinks, man, that's a big investment, that's a lot of money. But what does it say about the health of the industry that you're willing to make this investment?
From an industry perspective, this is what we do. This is our company. We build motorcycles, we build bicycles, we love it, and we want to keep doing it for decades to come, and this is an investment into the North American market. So the industry is healthy right now. From a sales perspective, right now, this month alone, retail sales for our company is up 38% over last year, which was an amazing year.
Yeah.
And year to date, we're up 24% at retail. So our consumers are out buying motorcycles, they're buying bicycles, they're racing, they're riding, they're enjoying the product, they're enjoying the sport. We love it. The industry is in a very good spot right now, and we want to make sure that it stays that way for decades to come. So this is our investment into the future.
Yeah, I would think that the majority of the people, and I know there's tons of ex-racers or ex-riders that work here now, that has to be woven into the fabric of the racing, and this is a passion. It's not just a 9 to 5 clock in and out, and then you leave it at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I call it is we have a performance family. So the products behind us and the products that we sell and what we bring to the industry, they're all performance products, and that's set by our global company. So with performance products, then you go race, which we love.
Yeah.
Racing drives the organization both on in terms of performance on the racetrack, but also performance in business. And it's part of the culture here. And the other part is the family part, where we look for people that are passionate, that have a competitive mindset, that love the sport and want to be around it every day. And we talk about coming in and just spending time with our friends talking about motorcycles all day long. And if you can find that balance and find that connection with the sport and with people that are involved in it, great things happen. And
it's interesting though, you talk about how important racing is. I feel like as companies grow, racing is expensive, right?
Yeah.
And it's sometimes hard to line up. Does this line item result in this return on the investment? And it's always been built on ready to race. As you say, your performance products. You don't have products that are not designed for racetracks throughout your entire lineup. Is it get tempting as the company gets bigger to chase other goals and move away from, oh, this racing, this is very expensive. We could find easier ways to make a buck here and there. But it doesn't seem like the company ever goes in that direction. It just doubles, or this building triples down on racing.
Yeah, the Racing and Development Center across the campus here is actually larger than our administrative HQ building here that we're sitting in.
How about that?
That's the connection that we have to racing and performance. And racing is the single biggest marketing effort that our company does globally. And we love it, but it isn't just for marketing, it drives product development.
Yeah.
When you push the limits of the equipment and the team and the environment and athletes, and we've seen that this year, of course.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, a number of our athletes have pushed beyond some of the limits, but it drives performance. There's that old saying that steel sharpens steel, and we've got this incredible group of people that want to win, and whether it's on a racetrack or building the next world-class product from our organization, racing is the level set. That's where you find out where the work that you put in and the effort that you put in, is it really the right effort and the right work, and how does it compete? And at certain points you find out that it didn't meet your expectations and you got to get better. But that's what racing brings to the organization, is that competitive spirit mindset to always improve. And the data you gather from racing is that's what's critical to building the next generation product even better, and building a stronger organization and building a stronger industry.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, exactly. Yeah. See, folks, racing, ready to race, it's a tagline, right? But it's a lot more than that. It's a really cool building. Thanks for the time, John. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
You bet.
The race,
30-second board, hot topics in the sport. Let's go. We'll start actually on Thursday before the race with the annual preseason press conference, which normally takes place at the media tent right next to the track. We upgraded this year. I didn't even know the Pala Casino had a pool area, a bar, a concert area. I didn't even know that part of the casino existed. And lo and behold, I got to host the press conference there. A much classier look for motocross back there.
Well, this is the look it deserves. This is such a premier series. And yes, it's great to have that facility right next door, and that tribe is so involved in everything that goes on at this race. So to have them invite us over to kick this series off in fashion and style, it felt right.
Yeah, and so much was going on that week. The next day, KTM, they had dealers come to see the building and then go to the race on Saturday. And along the way, they were building their trophy case. And they asked Grant Langston, hey, do you have the trophy from the 2003 125 motocross title, which was KTM's first ever in this series? And he said, no, because I never got a trophy. So Davey Coombs from MX Sports actually made a trophy, got a trophy made, and then GL got to put it in the trophy case. It's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah, and a fitting into a series 20 years later that I was a part of. I was racing the premier class at that time and watching all of this unfold. But to see that go down, and good on Davey Coombs for making good so many years later, because as a racer, it's a national championship. This is a huge deal, and it's something that he will always remember. And yeah, okay, better late than never, but still a really cool deal.
Yeah, the fitting part is that season ended with the final race being canceled and Langston getting a phone call saying he was champ. So the fact that he didn't have a trophy kind of did fit. So we're making rights for some wrongs from back then. And that might also happen here with the AMA Hall of Fame. They have been flooding it with motocross candidates as of late. They announced the nominees for 2023. Let's see, we got Travis Pastrana, Grant Langston, and Ryan Dungey on the list. That's a pretty cool group, but also shout out to Rita Coombs, who's my boss over there at Racer X, and Paul Schlegel. They were part of the founding of some very, very big events in the sport, including the Riddle-Ins, the amateur race. The Coombs family, of course, with now MX Sports running the motocross championship. So we'll see which of the 5 get in, but that's a pretty deserving group.
Yeah, and I like how well-rounded it is. There's a little bit of everything. There's racers to founding promoters to icons like Rita Coombs and that entire family. So however, whatever your age is, whatever your perspective of the sport is or involvement, there's something here for you. And all of these are absolutely deserving, and I'm sure they'll all get in.
There is not really a classification for what Travis Pastrana has done with motorcycling, but just get him in. He deserves it no matter how you want to slice everything he's done on motorcycles. Okay, now let's drill in a little bit deeper, actually literally in some ways, with the motocross championship. So we heard that the metal grates were going to replace the dirt start, and we saw it for the first time. What do you think of this move, JT?
Well, they do have experience with the grates, but the interesting thing to me was that none of them had really any experience on this particular setup. And I got to speak with Jensen Hendler, who is the manager of Monster Yamaha Star Racing 250 side. And he said they had ordered a bunch of these, but they hadn't arrived yet. So it was a little bit of a guessing game, I think, for all of the teams, because the materials can be different. The perforation, the diameter, and the spacing, and all those things really matter as far as how much traction you get. I think all of them were experimenting on race day, which you hear about, but it's not ideal. They're trying different tires, they're trying different ECU settings. They can set the RPM range to a certain limit. So basically when a rider winds up, he shifts it into second gear and will hold the bike wide open. So that ECU, the ignition and all the things that are applying the power will only go to a certain range. And it takes the guessing game away from the racer. But on the engineering side, they don't necessarily know where that sweet spot is yet. So they were guessing. You saw Justin Cooper not get the starts that he's used to. So it'll be interesting to see as we move into round 2, who's figured that out. Maybe those greats show up and they can get a bunch of starts in. But I think they learned a lot. And as the season progresses, you're going to see a little bit of that get sorted out. And I think the good starters will start to be the good starters again.
We knew going into this 450 program this summer, especially with the SuperMotocross World Championship at the end of the year and $5.5 million being on the line. And by the way, that doesn't just pay out to the winner or the champion, but it pays all the way through the 30-rider field in both the 250 and 450 classes. We knew there would be incentive for privateers to get as many points all season long as possible. Then we lose a lot of factory riders with injury in Monster Energy Supercross. So look at this, JT. It was a privateer day. 5 or 6 guys up front we expected. But in the 450 class, I'm looking at some of these names. Grant Harlan, 7th overall. And then our international contingent, Jose Butron, who I think you're familiar with from as a veteran of MXGP, the Spaniard in the top 10, Lorenzo Lecurcio in the top 10, Fred Noren, who's absolutely focused on this SMX playoff. Great days for those guys.
Yeah, and it's not their fault that we've suffered some injuries late in the Monster Energy Supercross season. You can only race who lines up against you on Saturdays. But what I was thinking about post-race was, typically, we start the season very strong. Field's healthy, it's very deep, and it progressively gets weaker. I think maybe we have the inverse this year because of the run-up into the SMX playoffs, where a lot of these riders, if they entered the season hurt, maybe they would take off the end or not come back at all, where I think now you saw Cooper Webb come back. I think you'll see the return of Justin Barcia soon. Jason Anderson, I'm sure, wants to get back out there. And all of that is incentivized by all the money up for grabs. The more points they can earn in this Pro Motocross Championship, the better they will be set up for the SMX playoffs. And that is a huge deal. If you like money, which I know you do, Weege, this is a huge incentive to get back out there sooner rather than later. So we could have the exact opposite of what we see every other year, where it starts difficult and gets a little easier. maybe we start easy and get a lot more difficult as we progress towards September in those playoffs.
I think I like money. You're a guy that would fly to any country, anytime, any place, anywhere to make a buck on a motorcycle. So to just have to race in Charlotte, Chicago, and Los Angeles, it's going to be very simple for these guys. This is a really cool story. There was a crash in qualifying that we talked about quite a bit with Chase Sexton, but we didn't have the visuals. We didn't get it on camera with our television crew or any of the media that's shooting the race as well. So shout out to the fire plug of our television truck, Doreen Murray, who will do anything to get the footage for replay. She actually walked over to where Sexton crashed, asked around if anyone happened to be shooting something on their cell phone. Somebody pointed out that an Italian who doesn't speak English, who was pitboarding, holding the sign for a rider, had shot it on its phone, and she got that shot, and that's why we have this Sexton clip. Random Italian guy who doesn't speak English got the shot.
Yeah, I watched it live, and I immediately texted our producer, Chris Bond, back at the truck, hoping that we were going to be able to show this during the broadcast. And, you could just feel the devastation that we didn't have it. And as you mentioned, Doreen saved the day. She went out and chased this down. It wasn't like somebody brought this over to the truck and said, hey, you might want this. She had to go search this out. And I really think it added to the context of the day, because in that first moto, Sexton just didn't look quite right. And I think had we not been able to show that crash and the heavy hit that he took, it wouldn't have translated as nicely. So yes, great shot. Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you, Doreen. I really think it added to the broadcast in the afternoon.
Now, Sexton did recover, put it up on the podium. So Honda goes 1-2 in the 450 class for the second consecutive year at Fox Raceway. And then Hunter Lawrence wins the 250 class. Honestly, even the rookie, Chance Hymas, had a pretty solid day for his level of experience. Right now, man, it is rolling for Honda, sweeping the Supercross titles. They could sweep these motocross titles. It's all going the right way for Lars Lindstrom and the crew over there.
Yeah, and I had mentioned this to super agent these days, Lucas Myrtle at Denver. Once we had kind of come to terms that Eli Tomac was injured and his season was effectively done for now, I started thinking about, okay, now who's left? It's all the Honda guys. In between Jet moving to the 450 class, Hunter looking prime to take over in the 250 class, and also another one of his riders, Chance Hymas, moving up full time this summer after leaving the series at Daytona. He was set up really nicely, and he kind of shrugged his shoulders, but we were kind of thinking the same thing. Honda is in such a good position moving forward, and I'm sure everybody's aiming at them. Of course, Chase Sexton is in that mix over at the Honda truck as well. But after a 20-year drought of winning the Monster Energy Supercross Championship, it's like all of the bad luck is now flipped, and they're getting all of the good luck all at once. It just sets up really, really nicely for anyone wearing red.
And because of all this, the brother sweep, Jet in his debut, Honda just rolling, all the other great things that go in the opener, I never thought that we could say these words. But Hayden Deegan's runner-up ride, somehow Hayden Deegan was probably underreported, undersold, underappreciated. This is the master of building hype with his social media group, and somehow he was under the radar. He's a rookie. He could win this title. He's that good now.
He is, and I have to admit, I was wrong. Coming into Houston at his debut for Monster Energy Supercross, I was like, well, top 10s would be pretty good. I wasn't necessarily a believer. He didn't quite get off to this type of start last summer when he jumped into Pro Motocross. But I've had to completely change my outlook on him. I truly think he is the real deal. You look at the fitness, the speed, the equipment, the lineage that he has. He looks like he's ready to take on whatever comes at him. And you have to just kind of give him all the credit in the world. I think there are plenty out there that want to take shots from the cheap seat because of the social media and all the distractions that could be there. He's as good as advertised when the racing takes off.
Yeah, he's a racer first. Everything else is good and a nice bonus on top, but you cannot doubt him as a racer and his desire and how much he's improved, how quickly, which only comes from putting in the work. This is a really cool thing we announced this weekend. Road to Recovery has long been the charity of choice for the Pro Motocross Championship. The money goes to help injured riders, and they might have their largest donation ever. Credit to the longtime announcer the live announcer at Washougal, Brian Barnes, who's been collecting jerseys for something like 40 years. He's donating all 300 of his jerseys to Road to Recovery. Go to mxlocker.com and you can see those jerseys. There are some old school ones. I do like money. I don't like spending it, but I might have to here because, I mean, these are jerseys from before people collected jerseys.
Yeah, this is truly a great collection and so broad in its scope. I myself was a collector. I was fortunate enough to go to these races when I was a child. And I can remember walking around asking for these guys' jerseys, which is funny enough, then I would morph into one of the guys being asked. So I have a great perspective on how this all goes. And most importantly, all of this money, all of the funds are going to help those that need it most. And Road to Recover does such a great job of being the mediator between those in need and those that can help.
Yep. Go to mxlocker.com and look at the jerseys, but don't bid on the number 3 Gary Denton ATV Motocross 1987 factory Suzuki jersey. Keep the price down on that one for me. I know it's obscure, but that's my guy. Finally, Hangtown. We're going to Hangtown. Round 2. This is the cool thing about this championship. I know we have playoffs now. I know it's new, but the motocross portion is just like it's always been. Iconic, historic tracks. We've gone to Hangtown forever. Nothing's changed.
Yeah, I believe this is the longest running national from what I hear. And I raced this race a lot. And it's interesting to me how much it's changed over the years. The dirt has changed. Of course, the original location changed also. But it's gotten so much better. It was a race where I just really had to kind of grit my teeth and bear it, the hard pack, and it was so slippery. And it was almost like racing on the freeway outside the venue. But now it's got moisture in the dirt, and I think it's turned into a race that guys genuinely enjoy. The one thing we have to remember, though, it's going to be hot this weekend. We're looking at mid-90s on Saturday, and early in a series, it's going to test the fitness of a lot of these guys. So last weekend, beautiful 70 degrees. This weekend, guys like Dylan Ferrandis, guys that are still trying to work themselves back into the series, there's going to be a big ask of them on Saturday.
Good point. Absolutely. The field is getting thicker, but not all these riders came in as ready, as you could see, as Jet Lawrence. We'll see if he can keep it rolling at Hangtown. Okay, fans, Pro Motocross season is now here. I'm excited about that, but if you know me, I'm more excited about deals and discounts, and I've got one to announce for you. International fans of Supercross and Motocross, the final 14 rounds of the Super Motocross season are now available for half off the original price on the Super Motocross Video Pass. That's right. 50% discount for all our international fans to watch the Pro Motocross season and the inaugural playoff rounds of the Super Motocross World Championship. So go to supermotocross.tv to purchase access to the exciting conclusion of this 2023 season. You get all our live races, our weekly show right here, SMX Insider, and over 800 plus hours of archived races. Okay, welcome to Fowlers Facts. We'll welcome in our statistician, Clinton Fowler. Now, look, we already had some history made at Hangtown with brothers, Jet and Hunter Lawrence, sweeping both classes on the same day. That's the first time that's ever happened. We obviously know it's a big deal for Jet to go 1-1 in his real 450 debut. He did race Motocross of Nations last year, but this is now full-time, points paying. But I did not realize how rare this Jet debut win actually is. So let's dive into that a bit, Clinton.
Yeah, Weege, it's incredibly rare. Let's take a look at the absolute first win in each of the two classes, because it'll highlight just how rare it is. So if you look at the 125s, 125, 250 class, a small bike class, there's 5 guys, only 5 guys in the history of the sport that have won their absolute first race. And 3 of those are just because it was the first time we held that race. So nothing, not taking anything away from these guys, but Marty Smith, Todd Campbell, Eddie Warren, these guys are on the list. Somebody had to win it. The fact that they won it is impressive, but they won it is the first time, right? But then you've got Mike Healy, who's also 1985, and then Eli Tomac, 2010, gets his first ever career win on the line.
Yeah, when you look at this list here, right, 1985 is the first year for 125 Supercross. Somebody's got to win the first 125 West and 125 East race, and then Healy winning in that same series. That's the first year. Same thing with Marty Smith, first year for 125 Nationals. Somebody's got to win the first race. So that's it. The Eli debut win is the only one where the series and riders were established and someone came in and beat them. I mean, JT, to put Jet Lawrence's thing in that kind of perspective just shows how impressive it is.
And I think he deserves it. If you look at his age, at being 19 years old, and to accomplish the things he's done, and really just to step in against the guys he has to step in against. Chase Sexton has all the momentum. He goes out and beats him, sweeps him, in his first ever Pro Motocross race on the 450, it's really hard to not think he deserves to be here. If he had raced the 450 in Supercross as some of these other guys have, or done these things, I would say, yeah, there's some qualifiers there that maybe we need to work through. But when you come in brand new to the 450 class and go out and do what he did, I think you deserve all the credit that you're going to get.
And then you move to the big bike class, right? You got Jet going up against Chase Sexton. You look at the list of people that have won their absolute first race in the big bike class, in the premier class, and some impressive names. But Weege, again, you kind of go through this list. There's the 1972, 73, 74, 75. It's really at the beginning of the sport. And so not to take anything away from these guys winning it, but it's not really the same thing. It's not really apples to apples. So you go through, the Sonny DeFeo and the Pierre Cars makers, like those guys were the first ever races. So you come down and you got Jeffrey Hurlings in 2017, Weege, and then you got Jet Lawrence.
Yeah, and Hurlings, that was just his first AMA motocross race, but he'd already won a ton of Grand Prix events and had raced a 450 in the Grand Prix series that year, all year long already. So it's not a debut like Jet. Although, JT, we do have to factor in this Motocross of Nations. It wasn't part of this series, but we do understand that Jet has raced a 450 one time before. It's just hard to classify what we put that in.
Yeah, and anywhere you look, you're probably going to find ways that you could nitpick this and that. But this is his true first points-paying race on the 450. And I also wanted to add, look at who he beat, right? He beat Chase Sexton, who's coming off the Monster Energy Supercross Championship. He beat Aaron Plessinger, former 250 motocross champion. He beat Dylan Ferrandis, both 250 and 450 motocross champion. He beat Cooper Webb, former 250 Pro Motocross champion. Adam Cincerillo, former 250 Pro Motocross champion. So it wasn't like he waltzed in against zero competition. He raced all of the people that have a lot of the same credentials that he had, and then just ran away with both motos. And okay, questionable the second moto, but to sweep your first ever attempt at this, yeah, it's pretty remarkable what we're seeing, and we're just getting started.
Now, the reason I didn't realize this was quite as big, I thought it was huge, but it had basically never happened before, is because I remember Carmichael went 1-1 when he first went to 250 motocross. Villopoto went 1-1 when he first went to 450 motocross, when they first moved up to the class. You've got this on a list here of the first race sweep, the 1-1 like Jet did. That's an impressive list of names, but they had all ridden that size bike elsewhere, either in Europe or in Supercross before, but still definitely worth noting these 1-1 sweeps, Clinton.
Yeah, Weege. I mean, he's now the seventh guy that swept that first round. And to your point, most of these guys had ridden a season of Supercross or a season or two of Supercross before they actually got that win in Pro Motocross when they did the sweep, right? So to your point, Sebastian Tortelli coming over from the MXGPs, or Carmichael and Villopoto, they had ridden a bunch of Supercross. Another example, the one that I like to highlight, Jeff Ward, who had ridden a lot of 250, 450 Supercross before, not to take anything away from him, but and I'll highlight, there's a great auction right now out for Road to Recovery on mxlocker.com. So super cool to see some of his jerseys up there. But the thing that I really want to highlight about Wardy, guys, he swept the first 4 motos in the first 2 overalls. So Jet, now going to Hangtown, has an opportunity to tie him as the only person to sweep the first 2 Pro Motocross races, Premier Class Pro Motocross races.
Yeah, that is impressive. I knew that this was a big deal, but when I look at every other person on this list that already raced that size bike and probably won on it before, and then Jet does it straight off the bat, this is probably even more historical than we realized. Get used to it, because there's probably going to be a lot coming from Jet. Anyway, we'll break it all down after Hangtown. Thanks for the stats, Clinton.
Thanks, Weege.
Okay, before we wrap this up, we get to do something for the first time. We are now looking at combined motocross and supercross standings. Now, I know super old school fans will say they used to have an AMA Grand National Championship. They combined both. That's true, but it didn't seed playoffs like this. So now we're starting to see things happen. What sticks out to me when I look at these standings, Dylan Ferrandis quietly sneaking into the top 20 in points after missing a ton of Supercross rounds, and that's kind of what we're going to see all summer long.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think as riders come back into the series, Jet Lawrence just moving into the 450 part of this, that's going to be an ebb and flow and a really fluid situation. And I think for the privateers, they're really going to have to rethink their summer strategy here, right? If some of these guys were planning to take some time off, they may be forced back into action earlier than they had planned on. So it's going to be a brand new wrinkle that we're going to have to watch, and it's going to be great every week. We're going to be able to watch this unfold and the strategies that they have to employ.
Top 20 automatically get to race those 3 races. Justin Cooper, currently now ranked 42nd in the 250s overall based on having won 250 races this year. So we'll be watching for him to work his way into the top 20 by the end of the year. And more points are available this weekend. So watch us at Hangtown. As always, we'll have our Race Day Live hour-long qualifying coverage show. That's at 10 o'clock local time. We're on West Coast, California this weekend at Hangtown. And the motos start at 1 o'clock local time. That'd be 4 Eastern. But don't forget, we have a halftime show now, JT. What was that like? We got to do some extra analysis during the races, which has never been done on TV before.
Yeah, it was awesome. I really enjoyed getting insight from some of these guys, whether it was mechanics or riders in between these races, because again, they're learning. And that was the first round. There was a lot of guessing and a lot of questions that had to be answered in that first moto. And how did they respond? How do they try to, fix the ship? Like Justin Cooper, we spoke to his team manager. It didn't go real well in that first moto. And how did they fix that? Need a better start? Was it him? Was it the bike? So we're going to get more insight than we've ever had. We're going to see exactly how that transfers into Moto 2. So it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great addition to the series.
Yep. And don't forget, our analysts have their time to break things down as well. So do not miss that halftime show. It's all coming your way again, starting 10 o'clock in the morning, California time at Race Day Live. Keep watching on Peacock this weekend. He's Jason Thomas. I'm Jason Weigandt. We'll see you for the 19th round of the Super Motocross World Championship from Hangtown.